All right, Brooke Pickett is the executive director of 826 New Orleans, the only Southern chapter of the country's largest youth writing network. 826 New Orleans believes creative writing encourages students to break down barriers and imagine the full range of what is possible. The organization cultivates, supports, and publishes young writers through collaborations in schools and with communities. Pickett is an artist within her own right, having shown her work nationally and internationally. She was the founder and director of Central City Artist Project, a nonprofit residency program in New Orleans that created opportunities for artists to produce work informed by the community and its residents. She lives in the lower 9th Ward with her husband and toddler, where they occasionally collaborate on fashion.
Hi, thank you so much, Jim. Happy to be here with everybody this morning. My name is Brooke Pickett. I am an artist, a mom, and a leader of a nonprofit organization. I founded the Central City Artist Project, an artist in residence program in New Orleans in 2010, and I'm currently the executive director of 826 New Orleans, a youth writing and publishing organization in the heart of the 7th Ward. The 7th Ward is one of the 3 largest neighborhoods in New Orleans, where almost a third of our residents are students between the grades of kindergarten and 12th. And we have 14 schools within a 2-mile radius. The 7th Ward has also produced a high number of famous musicians, playwrights, and activists, including Jelly Roll Morton, Alan Toussaint, Manny Fresh, Tyler Perry, and Frank Ocean. I was invited here today to speak on promise. In a year when we have witnessed so much pain and loss, I'm choosing to focus on promise as our capacity for good. A promise for a better tomorrow, and the promise that I see in young people here in New Orleans. I'd like to start with why I believe artists and writers and activists are crucial members of a healthy society, the inequity I see in our educational system, and why I've committed my career to empowering the next generation of truth tellers. I studied literature and painting in college, and I moved from Louisiana to New York State for an MFA in painting. It was in college and graduate school, in art classes, where I finally found my voice, and I found my people. I'd always been an avid reader, but being an artist turned me into a writer as well. I filled up notebooks with defenses on abstraction and statements about contemporary art and arguments against art that I thought was a little bit too on the surface. This is the time I began to think about an artist or writer's role in society. And while teaching at Middlebury College in Vermont is when I learned about the loon. A loon is an aquatic bird with a distinct and beautiful call that lives across North America. In the summer, loons make their homes at ponds and lakes in the northern United States and Canada, and then they migrate to the Atlantic and Gulf coasts in the winter. Environmental historians have spoken about the effects of human life on the habitat and well-being of the common loon for years. According to climate scientists, loons are indicators of watershed health, and they give us a wake-up call to see what we could not see otherwise. A thriving loon population promises a robust ecosystem. Simply put, when the loons begin to disappear, you know that your local ecosystem is in trouble. This is how I've begun to think about critical thinkers too. A healthy society is one where artists, activists, and writers thrive, where we raise artists, activists, and writers, where young people are empowered and speaking truth to power is encouraged. When we look around and see that people have been silenced or intentionally underprepared for reading and writing, our society is in trouble. Artists record and preserve our human history, and they play a separate and necessary role in contributing to the overall health, development, and well-being of our society. They are vehicles for expressing universal emotion. They are truth tellers. They illuminate the margins, and they push for social change. Art influences communities by changing opinions, instilling values, and translating experiences across space and time. It increases our self-awareness, and it allows us to be open to new ideas and perspectives. Equal access to quality writing education has been a long-standing challenge in the United States, and not enough has been done to move the field forward in recent years. I agree with the author, Jason Reynolds, that reading and writing should be a right and not a privilege, especially when literacy goes far beyond mastering reading and writing skills. As defined by UNESCO, literacy is now understood as a means of identification, of understanding, interpretation, creation, and communication. Literacy also improves child and family health and nutrition. It reduces poverty and expands life opportunities. Literacy is the foundation for civic engagement and a gateway towards economic mobility. Low literacy levels hinder students' abilities to express themselves to their fullest potential and to engage and participate in society fully. For those of you who may not be familiar with the 826 network, we are part of a national network of youth writing centers. It's actually the largest network of youth writing centers in the country. The original location was founded by Dave Eggers, the writer, and Nineveh Caligari, an educator in San Francisco. Recognizing the barriers for so many students in the public school system and understanding from teachers the need for individualized attention for students, Dave and Nineveh rented a space in the Mission District with the goal of providing after-school tutoring and writing support. To their dismay, after signing the lease, they realized that the space was zoned for retail. After someone commented on how much the rented space resembled the hull of a ship, the Pirate Supply Company was born. Pirate supplies in the front and writing support for young people in the back. It was a hit. And within several years, you saw 826 NYC open up with a storefront that sold supplies to superheroes. And then 826 LA opened up a time travel mart. Now we have 9 chapters across the country with creative storefronts. But we are so much more than a haunting supply company here in New Orleans. Ghosts still need a place to shop, but we also cultivate and support the voices of young writers aged 6 to 18 through creative collaborations with schools and communities. And then we publish them in beautiful books. We provide space and support for young people to tell their stories, and then we celebrate those stories at publishing parties. Our vision here is to develop a culture of literacy in New Orleans, inspiring the next generation of New Orleans leaders to be effective communicators and civic-minded residents. Whether students are enrolled in a 2-hour workshop or a semester-long in-school project, all of our programs end in publication. A rigorous writing process leads to a wide range of high-quality work. Everything from short stories about aliens celebrating Mardi Gras in outer space to personal narratives about displacement during Hurricane Katrina. When a student sees their ideas manifested in a physical publication, they learn that through hard work, determination, and opportunity, they are able to turn their ideas into a reality. This not only improves literacy outcomes, it also builds self-efficacy necessary for empowerment and advancement. In the 11 years since 826 New Orleans was founded, with 43 students in one classroom, we have worked with over 6,000 young people. We have helped them hone their craft, we've helped them boost their writing skills, and we've seen our alum go on to be in Vogue magazine, New York Times, and Cartoon Network this year alone. Our students are at the center of our decision making. Everything from topics they write about to the look and design of every book that we publish. And they do not shy away from hard conversations. Our good troublemakers, which is the name of our Young Writers Council project, have written about representation in media and the stigmas around mental health. A book we published in 2016 went viral when a group of second graders wrote letters to Donald Trump about what they thought made America great. This turned into a series of letters written to the outgoing president, the president-elect, and Hillary Clinton. I'd like to share one of those letters with you now. Dear Donald J. Trump, don't forget, this is the United States of America. Nothing is impossible, and we will change you far long before you change us. Love, your female African-American citizen, Brene, grade 7. Courageous, Eccentric, Diverse was a book written by third graders in New Orleans with extraordinary suggestions for replacements for the Confederate monuments which at that time were still in our public parks. But the one I'm probably most proud of, we published this summer. Our director of programs, Kylie Pulfus, spent months visiting the 10th grade students at George Washington Carver High School. The 10th grade English teacher reached out to Kylie during Black History Month because her students were tired of reading the same pieces every February. They had started asking her for the real Black history of America. Born out of the students' desire to think critically about the sanitized version of history that they had been provided, We the Almighty was published, a collection of poems inspired by the New York Times 1619 Project and the writer Nicole Hannah-Jones. The book was a culmination of months of hard work. Over 60 10th graders spent the first half of 2020 analyzing historical documents and using language from these texts as the foundation for their own poems. Weaving historical texts with their own thoughts and stories to create something new proved to be an act of reclamation and liberation. I wish that I could read the whole book for you today, including the brilliant foreword by Dr. Yaba Blay. But I'm going to choose to share the letter from the student editorial board. Our Black community today is struggling to be heard. These collages are our way of being heard. We would like you to notice us, to realize that Black lives matter. We have meaning on this earth. The color of our skin doesn't make us any different than others. The image others put out into the world about us makes us seem like harmful, dangerous, ignorant human beings, but we are innocent and intelligent. We have feelings too, and we would like to share our thoughts with you today. Thank you for listening. So I'm a huge fan of Goldie Muhammad, who wrote the book Cultivating Genius. She defines literacy as 4 distinct learning pursuits: identity development, skill development, intellectual development, and criticality. Criticality is crucial here because she defines it as the capacity to read, write, and think in the context of understanding power, privilege, and oppression. As our nation grapples with its history and tries to find a new foundation, youth voice is often left out of the conversation. And here at 826 New Orleans, we will always work to recenter youth voice in an urgent manner during such difficult times. If you have the privilege of spending time with young people, you know that their energy and optimism outweighs all adult fears and cynicism. It's one of the many reasons that I tell people that I love my job so much. Young people have the best ideas, the best senses of humor, and often the best solutions. We just have to slow down and listen to them. If you just look at the resilience of our young people right now, our schools have been closed for almost a year. They have pivoted so many times in the last 11 months, and yet what we have been writing about this fall with 826 New Orleans is joy. In fact, our after-school students just published a book in December called Do Not Open This Book If You Don't Like Joy. Lately, we've been asking ourselves, if a generation of young people had the space, time, and platform to write their futures forward, how would an entire city be transformed? And we have to ask ourselves these questions because, for context, Louisiana is one of the least literate states in our nation. And our young people continue to fall behind in literacy-related skills. 74% of fourth graders in Louisiana are not proficient in reading. And this bears out in Orleans Parish as well, where only 26% of our fourth graders are scoring proficient in reading and writing. Just like the loon is a barometer for a community's overall health, the way our young people learn to read, write, and think critically is a barometer of our community's overall health. And right now, New Orleans is failing its children. This is why I've been working on Write the Future. It is an innovative, youth-centered literacy initiative that's led by 826 New Orleans. Over the next 10 years, Write the Future will empower and mobilize an entire generation of New Orleanians through a literacy network that centers youth voice in our homes, our communities, and our schools across the city. We will invest in their promise because we believe in their capacity for goodness and for greatness. Through Write the Future, by 2030, 25,000 young New Orleanians between the ages of 3 and 21 will be published authors. That's right, we want to publish 25,000 young people in the next 10 years because we want our young people who grow up in New Orleans to expect to be writers and to demand that their voices be heard. And we will celebrate each book with the best publishing parties. We actually want limos and red carpets for everybody. Our students deserve it. And not only will they have the skills that they need for future success, they will understand the power of their voices on and off the page. Sharing a story helps to create space for others to share theirs, to widen the pathway of who belongs and why. There is power in allowing yourself to be known and heard, and owning your unique story, and using your authentic voice. And there's grace in knowing and hearing others' stories. Kids wake up each day believing in the promise of things, in the magic of what might be, because they are believers. And we owe it to them to stay strong and to keep working to make a more fair and equitable educational system for them. We need to remain hopeful while also acknowledging that there is a lot of work to be done. From I Want You to Know Something About Me, Ashante, grade 8, explains, by just using the power of youth, we can make this earth better than it has ever been. All it takes is young minds like yours and mine. Long story short, don't be afraid, because sooner or later you will be that voice that everyone else looks up to. We work towards a nation in which the power and the joy of writing is accessible to every student in every classroom. Together, we believe that writing is the key to cultivating a creative and diverse group of thinkers who will go on to define the promise of a better, brighter, and more compassionate future. And there could not be a more stunning example than our inaugural poet, Amanda Gorman, who stunned the world last week with her poem, The Hill We Climb. She has been quoted as describing poetry as a weapon, an instrument of social change. And poetry is one of the most political arts out there because it demands that you rupture and destabilize the language in which you're working. Inherently, you are pushing against the status quo. And for me, it's always existed in that tradition of truth-telling. Amanda was exceptional, but she's not an exception. There are so many exceptional young people in our city right now, and we cannot wait to see what they do next. Thank you.
Here's my question. The plans that you've talked about are pretty incredible. What kind of support do you need besides the kids to make all that happen? Because they're very aspirational. How can you make it all happen?
Thank you for asking that question. So I am someone who believes that in order to make real change happen, you have to dream as big as possible first, and then believe that those changes are possible, and then figure out the steps to do them. So we've had a wonderful opportunity at 826 New Orleans over the last couple of months to do a lot of vision work and dream big, and that has now turned into the 10-year timeline that I was just talking about. And so it's going to mean, to answer your question, it's going to mean financial support, it's going to mean community partners and building relationships and partnerships with schools and school leaders. Part of our idea is to embed writers' rooms in different high schools and middle schools and junior highs across the city so that we have basically like small publishing labs that exist inside high schools and middle schools.
Do you have a lot of corporate support, financial support in New Orleans, or do you have to go outside the city?
We have support in New Orleans. We also have support from New Orleanians who no longer live here but still have a lot of love for our young people in the city. And we will be looking for more corporate support as we're ready to start opening our writers' rooms.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your question.
Thanks, Brooke. We have a couple questions in the chat. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So Courtney asks, what is the best way to partner with you if we work with schools in New Orleans?
Oh, thank you, Courtney. That is a great question. There are a few different ways that you can reach out to us. You can go to our website. You can email us at hello@826neworleans.org. We love hearing from schools. We love hearing from community partners. All of you heard from Be Loud at the beginning of this talk. They're one of our favorite community partners. So yes, please reach out. We would love to talk to you about how we can work together more.
All right. What is your, this is another question, Brooke, from Kylie, who seems like y'all might know each other. What is your favorite part of the job?
So before I answer that, I am going to I just want to acknowledge that Kylie is the person that I was speaking about earlier, who was a part of publishing all of the books that I just read from. So round of applause for Kylie. My favorite part, so I have two favorite parts of my job. So I have a phenomenal team, including Kylie, who just asked this question. And they have certainly made the last 11 months bearable, if not enjoyable. And I would say what my favorite part of the job is publishing parties. You know, when we go from like working with young people on their story, getting it better and clearer and closer to what they want their story to look like and be, when that story is published and it is in a physical publication, there is a transformation that happens during these publishing parties that normally happen on the stage that I'm on by myself right now. It's usually filled with young people reading and sharing their stories with the public. And there is usually at least one adult crying somewhere in the room as that happens. So I think that the publishing parties are my favorite part of the job, and also what I have missed the most over the last 11 months.
All right, we got looks like Alex has a question for you.
Yeah. I'm so inspired. Just this was amazing. Thank you. I'm also just thinking, doing similar things about. I love the ambition of like having so many kids publishing, but thoughts around like how also to build an audience. Right? These are such like beautiful words. So how do you get people to actually read them and really lift up the awesome work that kids are doing?
That's a great question. And actually, I am excited to have this conversation with you further offline because I think, first of all, publishing means a lot of different things. Like, yes, there is publishing in books, and that is what we do, but I also consider Be Loud to be a publisher, digital publisher. And so I think, expanding our ideas of what publishing means and what presenting our thoughts and ideas and words mean is key to finding different audiences. We're also really interested in youth leadership pathways. So, how can students matriculate through our program starting at a younger age and then going through, Be Loud is a wonderful partner, and Lead New Orleans, I also want to give a shout out to them. They're a junior journalism program that work with students who are 18 to 21. And so I also see a beautiful pathway where we start with young people who then go on to be reporters and journalists. And I think, one of the roles of 826 New Orleans is not only to publish, but then to bring the community together to listen. So, one of the big aspirations is that we would be having 10 to 15 public publishing parties across the city every year, and inviting as many public officials and community leaders and community members here, and making sure that the student voice is centered in those conversations.
All right. Okay. So Jenna had asked about sharing some current events. So I'm going to share some information about the pizza and poetry. Hold on one second.
Do you want to published author? A poem you write could be published on pizza boxes around the city on Pizza Poetry Day. To celebrate National Poetry Month, 826 New Orleans is going to partner with local pizza joints around the city to share poems written by young people like us. Pizza eaters all around town could be reading your work on a pizza box. Head to www.826neworleans.org for more information. Submissions close on March 31st.
Okay. Susan Cooper, Brooke, asks, how do the schools themselves promote the published books of their students?
How did the schools, so first of all, this is my mom asking this question. And I should say that I can't see anybody. I'm looking at a camera, so I can't wave at anyone. Felt the need to confess that. Thank you, Mom, for the question. How do they promote, the question is, how do they promote the books once they're published? Well, they come to our publishing party. Our books are available. Actually, this answers two questions. It answers how do we get the community to listen more to our young people, and also how do we promote it. So you can find our books in a lot of different places. You can find them on our website. You can find them in the libraries. You can find them in local bookstores. There are several local bookstores that support us and our young people. And I would encourage you to go on our Instagram or our website to find out more information.
All right. Thanks, Brooke. Does anybody else have questions for Brooke? I have a question for Brooke.
Okay,
Anybody
bring
else?
it on, Jim.
Can you talk about your personal creative process?
Yes, I will note that in the last 14 months, a lot of things in my life have changed. I have a 14-month-old. That's probably the biggest thing that has changed my studio practice and creative practice right now, and the pandemic. So I'm a painter. I make really, really large abstract paintings. And a few things have shifted over the last 2 years. One is that I've moved away from making really large work because it's not conducive to my work life and my home life right now. My studio is now our bedroom, but I've always been really interested in that scale. And I wrote my thesis actually on the quilts of Gee's Bend and women who make really large things that also serve as forms of shelter or comfort or protection. And that was something that I thought about in my own studio practice and my paintings, and I have since come kind of full circle and have begun quilting again. So I'm working on my second quilt since the pandemic started, and it has been giving me a lot of joy. And so I'm right now trying to figure out how long-term, you know, like the painting and the quilting are gonna find each other again. Maybe they won't, maybe it just stays quilting. I'm not really sure, but yeah, that's what I have been working on for the last year or so.
That's awesome. Wait, so how big are these quilts? Can you give me are we talking about like?
I mean, well, they're about the size of my painting. Actually, they're larger than my paintings. So I'm working on one that is about the size of the wall behind me. So they're large. There is a lesson somewhere about small people who are determined to make really, really big things.
That's awesome, Brooke. And how long does it typically take to make one of those quilts?
But it's a good thing that my husband is not here for this. He would have. It takes a long time, and especially when you are working in very like sporadic bits of time, which you are as a mom with a young kid. So it depends, and also there's been I've been calling it rage quilting, which happens sometimes like fairly late at night, especially over the last like 6 months. I've been telling him that I'm going to do my rage quilting now. It takes a long time, especially if you're hand sewing, which I have been hand stitching a lot of them. So I've almost completed one, and then I have a second one that still needs a lot of support before it's done.
That's awesome. Well, hey, Brooke, thank you so much for that excellent talk. You did an awesome job. I'm going to let everybody unmute one more time and give you a hand. We appreciate you being here. You know, this takes a lot of time and effort to sit down and put together a talk that lasts 20, 25 minutes. So thank you for your blood, sweat, and tears, my friend.